Alright, well, this is Old Electronics Fan, and I'm getting into stuff that, well, definitely not my usual stuff, and it's definitely challenging because I don't have the knowledge that others do on some of the solid state stuff. I'm not completely ignorant of it, but it's certainly not my area of expertise. Now, the backstory behind this. The person who owned this apparently plugged something into the input that had a lot more output than this amp should have handled. And so I started doing some basic troubleshooting, and I found out, well, there's two chips here. There's this one and this one. This one has been replaced. This is the negative 16 volt regulator chip, and it had fried and given up the ghost. This one seemed to still be fine. Now, because I was a little concerned that something else may have taken this out, I did a little bit of checking around. I can't find anything wrong that says that this thing should allow the magic smoke to escape if I hook this up. But what's puzzling to me is that when I went to check out the power supply, which is actually more than a power supply in these, I found out, it's actually the audio amp as well as the power supply. Let's see here. This, thankfully, I found some information on these. It's not easy to come by. They are, when it comes to this little amplifier, they don't really want you working on it. So, based on what information I have, what little there is, whoops, come on you, stop it. I think this is the negative, come on, doesn't want to cooperate. Alright, so this side is the negative, I believe this is the plus, and the middle one is the ground. Now, there's a solder pad here, there's a solder pad here, and this middle pin is a ground. If I measure between here and here, I have voltage, and here I have voltage. I measure from here and here, from here to here, there's nothing. And then, of course, if I measure from here to here, it's open circuit. And the only thing that I could see was that there was what looked like just a lot of flux between this pad and this pad. I don't know if that means that I'm totally at a loss because I did not touch this board at all. Two solder pads would possibly indicate that there was a surface mount fuse or fuse resistor, but since I didn't remove it, it's just, I don't know. And all this area in between here looks like it just had flux, and I don't understand what happened. So, what I'm going to try to do is, let's go in here, let's move back out, alright, because I can't get where I want to go. Alright, so, what I've done is I've taken this little piece of thin wire, and I've put a dab of solder on each end of it. I'm going to try to put that in there. Hopefully it will act as a fuse just in case bad things are about to happen, because I really don't want to let the magic smoke out if I don't have to. So, no. Yeah, okay. Then, you probably can't see anything. This is very hard to do. Alright, so let's see here. Yeah. So I'm going to try. See, I pre-dabbed solder on there in the hopes that this would allow me to do what I'm doing. And actually, once I got one end nailed down, all I had to do was get in there and put more solder on there. So, there. So there I have. Hey, it actually focused. I'm shocked. Alright, so I put this little wire here. I am going to do a quick check. Just to make sure I have made a good connection. Now, I went with a really thin piece of wire because if something bad is going to happen, I would be much happier to see the wire go up in smoke than see some other component go bye-bye. Now, the other thing I need to mention about this is that this unit, they basically tell you don't try to service this, because this is a power supply and apparently audio. And apparently it's also an audio output, because your audio comes out here. This is your speaker output on the back here. So, and now we also have, this is the board that I was showing you before with the voltage regulators, and this is the front panel controls. So I'm going to put this to very temporarily together, and this is not going to be a case where now, because I don't want something to go bye-bye on me, I am going to put some of the mounting screws in this board to ensure that it doesn't slide backward on me. Come on. Of course, it's not cooperating at all. Come on. I guess we can do that and that. Well, maybe. Let's go. No. Something, please. We're down to one switch here, and it just doesn't really want to play well with others. So, yes, okay, there we go. And these controls, the threaded part of the controls, can be a pain in the neck because they decide they don't really want to cooperate. Alright. So just grab a couple of screws so that we can... No. Stay. And you can't see what I'm doing. Alright, fine. Alright. Now, as you may have noticed, I started in on this without recording a thing. And it was fairly intentional. This isn't exactly the thing I usually work on, which means I don't have a lot of experience doing this. But I can read circuit diagrams. I do know some basic stuff. about solid state. Now, this amplifier uses a lot of MOSFET chips. It's not, they're not just basic MOSFET. You got these little chips. There are MOSFETs in there, but there's also a transistor. There are also transistors in there that make up the rest of the circuit that make these fellas work. So, alright, so we put our connection there, we've got a connection here, and now one of the things I want to do, and I didn't get this set up beforehand, those are Zener diodes? Huh. Okay. They have a couple of, looks like LEDs, but one of them seems to be identified as a Zener. Interesting. And this is, I think, is supposed to be overdrive. But anyway. So I turn this, that's off, good. And so what I need to do, what I want to do, is figure out where I want to measure those voltages, and that means I want 2 meters set up, because if I see the voltage on either positive or negative side of things not coming up, that's going to tell me very quickly that all is not well. And I'm going to use a variable transformer to bring this up slowly so I can watch. So let's see, I want to, so the voltage regulator, let's see, it's down here somewhere. Okay, where are those? I have to figure out where I am in this, because I am not sure. I can find out, because I know with pin 12. Let me see. Would that work? Interesting. Because they have here, they show you that you've got, let's see, so down here you have, this is 24 volts coming out of this going into this circuit here, and apparently, let's see, this is, they've got a resistor here, so we have 24 volts there. And then we go through these two chips, ICs, whatever, and I believe this is 16 volts. And plus and minus, which then feeds up here to these two diodes. Okay, and it gives me diodes. Alright, so I should be able then, alright, let me figure out how I want to wire this up with my leads. And because I just realized the simplest thing to do would be to come to this point. I've got D2 and D1. I can measure across those, and I can find that by looking at, it looks like R4 and R3 come together there, and, well, actually pin 12 on the chip, and I know where that is. Alright, so let's see here. So pin 12 on the chip should be 14 to, okay, 12. Now I should have, okay, so those two connect to pin 12. Alright, I don't know why I don't have more light on there. Alright, so I've got on pin 12, and I go here to these diodes, and those diodes share a common end, and obviously there's nothing there. So this is the pin, well, obviously I'm beeping, so I'm on pin 12. That goes to there, and then off from there I should see a couple of resistors, R3 and R something else. Well, this is R4 and R3, and apparently it is. I wonder if I can. What's W12? I don't know. Well, I'm going to have to see if I can, because I want to measure from here to here and here to here. And let's see. Okay, I have there. There we go. I'm sorry to bail out there. I had to round up some stuff that I should have rounded up before, and then it's kind of tedious trying to hook all this stuff up. So I have a couple of small connectors that these little hook connectors that work well in such situations. I should probably make up more. I haven't done that yet because I don't do this very often. So right now I don't have anything turned on, and I should probably, well, let's see, what we got here? Volume all the way down. Alright, so the volume's all the way down. So that should mean I can, for a short while, run this without any load on it. I guess some tests you actually do have to run it with no load on it. So, here we go. We're going to turn this on, and I got millivolts on one of them. That is concerning. Let's just put it that way. Let's do something else. Let's do this for a minute. Not short. I have a third meter, but it's not in the house right now. Actually, I think it's out in the garage. Alright, so what I want to do is let's do this. Well, let me go crazy here and hook the ground. Alright. Now I want to see if I can see anything here. I don't see anything. Okay, that's a problem. Let's try this. First of all, let's make sure I have a connection. Alright, I do. Alright, so we're going to come up and I'm going to check. I don't have anything. Why? Maybe because it's not up high enough? Oh, there it goes. Oh. Okay, well, it turns on only after a certain voltage, it would seem. So, okay. Not surprising, but it is the way it is. Alright, now, okay, so I've got my negative, I've got a negative 15 and a plus 15. I'm running about 100 volts there. Okay, let's bring it up a little bit more. I'm checking the regulators, see if we got heat. The fact that I've got fairly good voltage here should indicate that, so positive, if I've got this right, I mean this should be the new chip I put in. It's warm. It's a little bit warm, not as warm. Oh, so I got to fill you in on the backstory of this. Or I actually did. So yeah, I was talking about, he fed, let's see, for the headphones, line out, send return, speaker out. Okay, so this is the input. And apparently, I don't know, he didn't tell me what he plugged into this, but whatever he plugged into this was higher voltage output than this should have received. And shortly after he did that, it decided to not work anymore. So, of course, I went looking to see what I could see about this chip, because this chip is the one, doesn't seem too bad. Alright, so this chip is the one, let me see if I can, maybe I'll bring this in a little bit so you can see better what I'm doing here. Alright, so here's the jack that he abused. And there is a 10k ohm resistor that goes into this first chip, which is the one right there. And it has pin 12, which is the one that also gets the voltage. This is pin 12. This is also the one that gets the power supply voltage, the plus 16 and the minus 16. And I started just doing some basic voltage checking, and I found out that 16 volts wasn't there. It was way, way low. Plus 16 was fine, but the minus 16 was gone. As far as I can see, this chip did not go away. It's not, we'll find out when I hook up a speaker to this and try to play something through it, but it's not, based on my quick checks, it looks like this chip survived, but the voltage regulator did not. So I fully expected that this chip would have taken a hit and it would have gone away, and that would have been the end of that. I was very surprised to find out that the negative voltage regulator went bye-bye. I'm hoping that's the only thing, but I think when that voltage regulator went belly up, wherever it is, I don't know if it's in here or there, it took out that wire that I put in over here, or whatever was there, I don't know. I mean, I still don't know what's there. And that little thin wire I put in there is just fine. Of course, I've got more solder on there than I really wanted. I wanted to be a lot of bare wire there. But that isn't how that worked out. But it looks like based on this. I mean, the voltages are a bit low, but I think, what's that say, 116, yes, so let's go up a little bit. That's 121. So 15.8, that's pretty close. 15.5, that's a bit low. So I'm not sure, but I don't see anything getting hot. So far everything seems fine. Neither one of these chips seems to be doing bad things. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unhook all of this, hook up a speaker to this, and then I'm going to do something for an input. And it's got aux in, so maybe I'll just use that. Although that, well, why not? What the heck, all I want to know is if the amp works. And if the aux in works, then I'm going to go with an input here in the guitar amp input. So although I should probably start with this because I can do that. I've got a jack somewhere around here. Yes, I have my jack, so I can hook my something audio there, I think. So this is well, on the upside, the magic smoke has not departed. Things are not getting hot, so we're going to kill this and get everything unhooked, and then I'll come back and hopefully we'll have a working amplifier. So with what do I want to say? What do I want to say? All right, I mentioned at the start that I don't know a lot about this. People who are very familiar with this equipment might be yelling at their screen right now. But well, let me say, this board, I saw one for sale for $160. It's not cheap. I don't know what these amplifiers go for. Brand new. This is an older one. So, I don't know. Let's see here. So, I don't think I'm going to be missing or losing anything of value here, because I really don't want to spend that much money on this amp. Fender makes a decent amp, no question about it. I just don't really have. Oh, what's this? On? Oh, it is. Okay. I was wondering why they didn't have one, but they do. I didn't look to see if that was on though. Let's yes, the light comes on. Alright, so this little power light does come on. That's a good thing. Alright, so I'm going to go back to what I was going to do, which is round up what I need to put some audio in here, whichever way I go with it. I might use an RCA jack because that's the easiest way to get audio into this thing based on what I have available to me. So maybe I'll start there. Oh, and then I have to put a speaker on it. Yes, I got to do that. So, back in just a moment. Okay, well, I'm back, and of course I just had to play with it a little bit before I went back on camera, although I probably should have just fired it up, but I'm glad I didn't, because the aux in starts playing immediately at full volume. Okay, so Okay, so it's making music. And the aux, these controls don't control anything. So the next thing I want to do is, let's see, I want to, we're going to take this off, that's off, let's see. So I'm going to take this little gadget, and we're going to take this, put that in, and, oh, I don't want that. And you can't see what I'm doing because I'm over here. Alright, so we are going to, well, this doesn't matter. So this is my ground. And then I need my signal. Alright. Lights, camera action. Wow. Well. Well, to say I'm shocked is an understatement. I didn't expect this to be this simple and this short. So, I'm just baffled, or gobsmacked, or whatever I am. Okay, well, alright, so let me just point out the fact that it looks like I have successfully repaired this, even though I don't know all that much about this. Now, because I was unsure of myself, because I don't do this kind of thing very often, I tried to take steps to make sure that I knew what was going on. So let me show you. Unfortunately, I didn't tape any of that either, because I was of two minds as to whether I was going to tape this or video this or whatever it is I'm doing. Alright, so the first thing I did when I found out that this was broken was I went looking in this whole area. I checked components. I checked to make sure that nothing was shorting to ground. I checked this out. Now these are a little bit funky to test because of how they're designed, but I believe that these two legs, you can use a diode test across this. I was primarily looking to see if I had a short here, because this got terminated, or not this, but the voltage regulator. So I did a fair amount of checking, and then once I got the replacement regulator, I went and started checking voltages here. Now, so thankfully they give me at least that much, because this is the pin where it tells you the plus and the minus, and this is your AC supply, and this is your looks like your inputs for. So this is your signal chain coming in, and then this is your input into this little board, which then feeds your speakers. So the first thing I did was to check this and see if I had voltage here. And of course I found out that I didn't, because that ground connection, which you saw me repair, was broken. And I still, if somebody knows anything about these ICE amplifier / power supplies, I'd be really, really delighted to get some feedback. And because right now, I have no idea what should be here. I mean, what I've done, I tried to be as, oh yeah, go there. I've tried to be as safe as possible by putting this thin wire in there. Now, if I crank this up, I don't really think it's going to go away, because these are fuses, and they tell you what the fuses are, what the wattage is, or the current that these fuses can handle. And one of them is 400 milliamps, and let's see here, what's that one? Well, they've got a bigger one, which I'm assuming is this one, which is 2.5 amps. F101, and oh, okay, so both of them are 400 milliamps. So one of these is for the plus supply, and one of these is for the negative supply. I don't remember which is which. My assumption is that one of these should blow before anything else does, but this, whatever was there, went away. So and I spent a fair amount of time checking. I had this board off. I spent a fair amount of time checking around in here, trying to make sure that this pad didn't connect through some other avenue, and it doesn't. If you go from here, you find out that I think it's this little solder joint right here is actually where this wire goes. And just to make sure that you can't figure out how this is wired up, they've coded this board in such a way that you can't find the circuit runs. You can't. It's very hard. I mean, some of them you can see, but in this area, not so much. So it's just, and if you look on the underside, there's a couple of components that go this way underneath. They're pointed this way, and one of them looks like it goes straight to one of these pins, but it doesn't. It goes to another hidden circuit trace. So they really don't want you. They really don't want you doing anything with this. They seem to be hiding stuff as much as they can. So I spent a fair amount of time checking this, making sure I didn't have anything wrong in this area. I didn't spend a lot of time, but I knew that these fuses were both good because I checked them. I knew that when I then I fired this up, and I checked between here and that and each of these, and I had the voltage that I should have. But if I checked between here and those, nothing, as I mentioned before. So it had me going pretty well. And I was just, well, to say the least, puzzled. So like I said, if you have one of these, now I found a picture of one of these. There are different versions or variations of these. And so on some of them, they've got a couple of components running sideways in front of this connector. And I don't know if those are capacitors or what those are. I didn't pay that close attention. Just knew they had two components running here. So that circuit board was a different revision than this one. So I couldn't even, I was trying to get a picture that could show me what went here, and there wasn't anything. So I may poke around and see if I can find other pictures of this board and see if I can find out what originally went here. Because all I had was a thick layer of flux between here and here. And like I said, it looked like there's a surface mount component of some kind there. I was assuming it would be some kind of a fuse resistor. A little puzzling though, given that you have two two fuses right here and here. Neither one of them went kaboom. So there's a couple of mysteries in this thing that I have zero answers for. I am going to experiment with this. I have it's a PV actually. It was a keyboard amp and speaker that I bought at a tag sale, and unfortunately the design of the case was cut out. Oops, let's back up so I can show you what I'm talking about. The case that PV amp head was in came over, cut in, went over, and came out and over. This amp and speaker is a 15-inch speaker, I believe. It's heavy. Guess what happens to the controls when people are moving things around that are heavy? They hit them. So I was having problems with my PV amp. It's old. I mean, I think I paid $25 for it at a tag sale. And so I started exploring, and I found out that these had been hit hard enough to actually break the circuit board that made up the pot. And I looked and I looked and I looked for replacement pots, and I can't find any. They just don't exist. So I said, this is not nice. Like, this is bad. So I actually had this amp given to me prior to me finding out that the controls in the PV were toast. So what I'm going to do now is, I'm probably going to leave it just the way it is right now. I'm going to pull the amp head out of that PV, hook this up in its place, and just see how it's going to sound and see what's going to happen when I turn the volume up, driving that big speaker. I have a smaller speaker, although actually this is a 150 watt amplifier. The speaker in here is good for probably 50 watts. So if I get too rambunctious with this speaker, well, bad things could happen. Oh, and that reminds me. Yes, oh, I remember. My dad used to play music. He would go out in restaurants and bars, and he would play music. He came home one night, and he showed me the speaker for his amp. The voice, coil, and cone were sitting out of the speaker. Some drunken patron decided to step up to the mic when he stepped away for a minute, I guess, and shout into the mic to somebody else in the bar. Sadly, the speaker he was running was incapable of handling the power of the amp that was driving the speaker. Usually not a problem. The way he used it, it worked fine, and it lasted quite well until that guy yelled into his microphone and took out, and the only thing keeping the speaker and voice coil from falling out of the speaker were the two wires that connected up to the speaker connections. And it was a pretty sad thing. It really toasted that speaker for fair. So I know bad things can happen when you take a high watt amplifier and hook it into a lower watt speaker and you start fiddling with it. I'm not going to do that. I am going to be much more careful, and I'm going to do what I said. Use a better speaker to experiment with. I'm excited. I'm ecstatic that this is actually working. I'll be honest. I fully expected to get into this and find out that my fix didn't work, or that something else was wrong that I didn't catch. Like I said, this is not an area of my expertise. So I really didn't expect this to work. when I got into this the way I did just a little bit ago, I really did not expect that this was going to work. I thought I'd find something else wrong, and I wouldn't have stopped there. I would have gone looking to see if I could figure out what was wrong, but it turns out I lucked out. So I will set this up with that speaker once I get the old amp out of there, and I will show you what I've got, and maybe I'll pop that little repair. Maybe something else will die, I don't know. But we're going to give it a shot, because why not? I want to use this. My goal was to use this in that with that speaker, because I've got it. I don't have an amp for it, but now maybe I do. I'll be back. Alright, well, this is the old PV amplifier. It's actually a KB300. I've never been all that impressed with this. The bottom end is lacking in this. I was kind of surprised with an amp that's supposed to be for keyboards that it didn't have more punch in the bottom end. But this gives you some idea of the difference between that Fender amp that I just repaired and this massive transformer. 4 220 case style power output transistors and driver transistors and whatnot. It's fairly basic, and they have some minor. They have some little ICs in here, different places. So there's not a lot to this. Unfortunately, the controls. See, the knobs are broken off. This one is really completely broken off. Their design was pretty lousy. I mean, this sounded decent, but you can't get replacements for these controls, and it's just not healthy. One of the nice things about this is that it could act as an amp and a mixer, because you have multiple channels. How many does this? I had three channels. So if I were going to do something that required more inputs, I could pick up a little $50 mixer somewhere, using it even less probably. I haven't checked lately, but anyway. So this is supposed to be 150 watt per channel amplifier. I believe that's what it says. Yeah, 150 watts, 24.5 volts RMS, 4 ohm speaker load minimum, and had a record out jack on it, line out, preamp out. It had some capabilities that are useful. A remote switch, power amp in, power amp preamp out, line out. It's not, I don't think it's high end, but this thing is massive, the case of it. So you look at this and all of that stuff in that monster transformer, and then you look at that. There's just, that's it. It's just, there's a whole lot. This is a lot busier. There's a whole lot going on in this. See, what's it got? Headphones, aux in, return, send. So that's for the effects. Foot switch. Has a line out. Has an XLR line out, so you can feed it into your sound system if you're using XLR. But it's just a single jack in, single input, and this is a bass amp, Rumble 150. So it's not intended to be an amp, a mixer slash amp. This keyboard amp actually had an XLR input so you could have a mic into being fed into this, along with your 3 channels. So you could have a piano, you should have a guitar, whatever. So it was nice because of what it had for features. But like I said, it really didn't have that good a bottom end. I'm very surprised at that. So I have this. See if I can swing this around. Get myself in. All right. Are we going to be? Oh, there we go. So there's the old PV. And with a speaker that size, you'd expect some pretty good bottom end. And what's nice is that because this other amp was rated at 150 watts, I'm certain that speaker is also rated for that. And the horn as well. You can see this is dusty. It's been sitting for a very long time. It wasn't working. And there were things I was doing with it, but I had something else I was using in place of it because this is no longer functional. Oh, and this is interesting. The connections inside this are less than great. Let me just swing this up a little bit. This is, oops, yeah, come on, there we go. This is the connection that goes onto the circuit board for the speakers. There's just 2 pins sticking up out of the board. There's no clip, there's no latch, no nothing. And when I bought this, the guy said, well, I think probably the speaker connection has fallen off the amp board. Apparently he's had it happen before, and he was right. So the speaker was, with amp, cost me a whopping $20, $25, something like that. I know I spent a lot of money. Yeah, right. Alright, so I'm going to leave that aimed there. I'm going to fire this up. There we go. Okay, so this thing really does have a decent sound, as you could hear. So you don't have a comparison between the old amp and the new one, but trust me, this one's far better for output and for bottom end. It's, you know, these are humming because they aren't grounded against the chassis like they're supposed to be. So this is, well, might as well turn it off because I'm about done with that. So it's working. I pondered the question of whether that little jumper wire I put in there would survive or not. And I think I managed to misplace that again. Well, anyway. So anyway, that little jumper I put over in here in the back, I don't think that's gonna go anywhere. Like I said, I will be looking to see if there was supposed to be something else there, and I don't know where that went. But what did I do with my? Oh, there it is. All right. I'm always losing this. But anyway, so where am I headed? What am I thinking? What am I doing? I don't know. I'm beyond excited. I'm very happy with it. And as mentioned before, if somebody knows about this right here, I would be very happy to hear from you. Oh, and I've also been pondering what might have taken out this regulator chip. And the only thing I can figure is that he was feeding in an audio signal of some sort at fairly high volume. And I'm guessing that when the audio went negative, that it pushed the voltage up on this regulator too far and it popped. That's just a guess on my part. I don't know. I'm still wondering about that. And that obviously, if somebody else knows, can tell me tell me why that happened, I'd be happy to hear that as well. But so my goal now is just to put this all back together and start using it, because I think it's all set, it's all good to go. And here's another example. Again, this is not my area of expertise, but my understanding of basic electronics, troubleshooting and that sort of thing helped me figure out what was going on with this. And so even though this, and you know, I kind of, how do I put it? I thought I knew what was wrong with this. I thought that that first chip had probably been blown when he told me what he did. I did not expect that regulator chip to have gone bye-bye. But you go in, you do some basic measurements, you find things, you replace components. I actually bought 2 of the regulators just in case I missed something, and this one went boom. Thankfully, that did not happen. We're good to go. And so I'm going to wrap up at this point. And I'm just, well, number one, I'm very excited that I've got this now. This has been sitting for a long time because there was part of me that didn't want to find out that I had a problem I couldn't fix. I guess I'm kind of avoiding it a little bit. But I finally decided, well, you know, I got the parts, let's go for it. And I'm glad I did, because it works now. So I guess the bottom line is you may be able to fix something that's out of your comfort zone. Just be careful, engage, you know, do some very, you know, the basics. Do some diagnostics that, you know, check for shorts, check for voltages that aren't there, or voltages that are too high, whatever. Do some just, and obviously get a circuit diagram so that you can figure out what is where, that's where that, at least they gave you the circuit diagram for these 2 boards. That ICE board, no. They want you to send that back. They want you to replace that board if it fails, which I guess it's very complex, and it's probably hard to, certainly be hard for somebody like me to work on. So if that board had failed, then this amp would be of no use to me, because I would have to send it somewhere to get it repaired. Well, I wouldn't have to do that. I just have to buy another board, and I don't want to spend, like I said, I don't know how much these go for used or new. But given how I want to use this and my need for this, it's not worth $160 to me. So this probably would not be fixed at that point. I might donate it on to somebody else who has the skills and the abilities to maybe get into that board and repair it. But try to find a circuit diagram for that little ICE board. They aren't out there. You can't find them. So you'd really have to know basic circuit theory. And I see a bunch of chips in there that have ICE written on them. So those are probably unique to this application. And they have part numbers on them. But I haven't bothered to look to see if you can find out any information on those. Sometimes when I've gone looking for chips, you can't get the information on them. They're proprietary or something, and it's just not available. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if you simply can't, if one of these chips failed, I wouldn't be surprised if you were just simply unable to get them. So anyway, I'm wandering on, but hope this was interesting to you. I really, really, really wish that I had recorded the diagnostic part of this, because that could have been helpful to people. But I've tried to explain what I did, because I failed to do that. And this is a lesson to me that hopefully I learn. That if I even think I might want to record something along the line, I do it from the very beginning. So anyway, I'm going to call it here, and if you're still watching, thank you. Hopefully I'll see you next time.